In the 21st century, it's clear that an education is a key component to a successful life. But what if your sibling, son or daughter, or any loved one for that matter, was denied the right to an education simply because they were identified as having a disability? Now, in modern society, it would be an outrage if a child was denied an education simply for this reason. However, it took nearly 40 years for students with disabilities in the United States to receive the same acknowledgement and protected rights in the public education system. Based on the information provided by the U.S. Department of Education, Richard Gargiulo, author of Special Education in the Contemporary Society, reports that more than 5.8 million students in the United States between the ages of 6 and 21 received services through the special education program in the 2008-2009 academic year. As a future educator, I want to briefly inform you on the origins of the special education field, how it initially lacked the means to assist individuals with disabilities, and how current federal legislation continues to evolve in order to best meet the needs of these students. Looking back, there are a couple individuals who are considered the pioneers of the special education field. According to Cook, Klen, and Chen, the authors of Adapting Early Childhood Curricula for Children with Special Needs, many scholars point to the French physician Jean-Marc Gaspard Itard for the earliest documented attempt for providing a special education. Itard endeavored to civilize a 12-year-old boy named Victor who was found by a group of hunters. Victor, also known as the Wild Boy of Avion, was unable to communicate and exhibited animal-like behavior. Though Itard's efforts to rehabilitate Victor were unsuccessful, Itard is still deemed as the father of special education. Edouard Segon, who was a student of Itard, is also known for his work on early intervention and sensory methods for children who were otherwise identified as unable to learn. It was Itard's and Segon's work that set the base for society to develop the field of special education and evolve it into the contemporary field it is today. Though the 19th century showed promise to further enhance the field of special education, much work was needed in order to protect the rights and needs of individuals with disabilities. For instance, many schools during that time denied the right to an education for individuals with disabilities or placed these students in a self-contained classroom. This meant that students with disabilities were kept separate from the remaining student body. It was believed that including students with disabilities in the average classroom would be unbeneficial to all those involved. Circumstances for the individuals with disabilities did not change much until the 1980s when various movements shed light on the discrepancies in the public education system. According to Aaron and Lopras, the authors of Disability and the Education System, a critical turning point occurred with the passage of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This act banned any recipients of federal funding from discriminating against individuals with disabilities. This federal law was the first law to express and define the rights of individuals with disabilities, as well as specify specific funding for their edification and inclusion in the public education system. 2 years later, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975 was passed, which further initiated the development of special education programs. As society's perception of disability changed, so did the name of this law. It is now known as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also referred to as IDEA. According to Gargiulo, IDEA was enacted in 1975 with the purposes of 1. Ensuring that students with disabilities were given a free, appropriate education with additional services to meet their individual needs. 2. To assess the effectiveness of these programs. 3. To protect the children's as well as their families' rights. And 4. To assist states to further support children with disabilities. Now, many amendments have been attributed to IDEA since its enactment in 1975, especially as modern research has uncovered new information on intervention methods that pertains to the development and instruction of individuals with disabilities. And just to show you how federal legislation has impacted these students, Gargiulo has created an illustration showing the increase of students between the ages of 6 to 21 that were served in special education programs under IDEA. As you can see, there is an increase of students who were provided the services needed to flourish in education. With each amendment in IDEA, more accountability to providing early intervention and special education services are being put onto schools and the states. Although the special education field has been flourishing with modern research and federal legislation, it's important to highlight the origins of the special education field and the struggle that many students with disabilities faced in order to receive the same education that most students did during that time. It's also important for society to remember that all students, despite their abilities and limitations, should receive the appropriate resources in order to flourish in the academic field. As the late Nelson Mandela eloquently put it, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And that is my informative speech, and thank you for listening.